I'm going to add more people, but they're not me. They're not going to do it as good as me. But when you track via KPI and you maintain that standard, that's how you grow.
That's another really hard lesson learned as a newer leader is to stop micromanaging. It's hard to do when you've been trained habitually to just solve for everything. The more that you can be a better leader, the easier this business actually becomes.
Here are 3 simple steps to elevate your leadership and grow your team here in 2025. So Chris Petsy went from 2 to 83 properties in about 2.5 years and just dropped some knowledge bombs on how to grow your team the right way, get them to be invested, and make sure your company is not a revolving door for your employees.
I love this topic so much. We're going to talk about leveling up your leadership. It's something that you never stop doing, right? You're always you're always growing in this area. And especially in small business or any business, when you start to bring on other people, it's just so important to continue to raise your own standards. And it comes with a lot of personal development. But what helps is when you have really strong structure in your business to actually exhibit some of those behaviors with your team members. So I'm going to be talking about 3 things that you can do today in your business to start leveling up your leadership, acting like a CEO. And whether you have somebody on your team or not right now, you're going to want to have these principles or these systems or tools in place as you continue growing and scaling, no matter what level you want to get to.
100%, man. And I mean, you grew so fast, but you also grew your org chart or your team fast. You got a mix of local folks. You've elevated some people from being a cleaner, just a cleaner, to being an ops manager, now hiring a cleaning manager. You're known as the ops guy. And that's kind of how you set up your partnership too. So before we get into anything else, your partnership has been, I mean, instrumental. You had 3 properties when you and I were first like doing Zooms back in 2020. And then you met your partner, right?
Yeah, we've talked about this before too. I don't necessarily advise people to go the partnership route right out of the gate. I think it's important to learn this business and grow it yourself. I mean, you've obviously done that. Sjogren did that. Dave, it's so many others. So it's not 100% necessary. But what I've found is there are 3 reasons. I actually did a post today about it that helped, that made a lot of sense for me to partner. One was we had very similar goals. If the other partner has similar goals to you, like then you're gonna have clear visions and you can act from that goal. The second thing is behaviorally, you want to make sure you have similar core values. Doesn't necessarily have to be family, but in our case, like we both had young kids, we both had goals in terms of wanting to spend more time with that family. And then third, and maybe the most important thing, was the complementary skill set. I talked about this in the reel today, but he was so good at sales and I had the ops because of the mastermind. Quite frankly, it wasn't anything that I created on my own. I just took that blueprint, like a slide that Mike had created, and shared it with my business partner, Sean, and said, like, this is how we're going to do this. And he was like, I'm sold, let's do it. So from that are like the processes and the systems. But, from there, once we went from 3 to 11, basically overnight, we immediately went into, we got to start to hire. And when you start to hire, that's when you need to start to implement some of these leadership techniques that we're going to talk about in a minute. All right, sweet. Let's get into it. All right. When, as Mike said, one of everybody's first hire is really a cleaner, right? And that was obviously my first with my first property. And that person, I want to, speak on results really quick. She's developed into our director of operations. Her and her husband are looking into buying their first home this year. We have now 10 cleaning companies that we work with, and more than half of those we've worked with since the business was founded 6 years ago. 2 of those cleaners have purchased properties in part thanks to the work and the companies that we've helped them grow. And I'm really proud to share that. Another employee just this past year is under contract with his first STR. We're going to be, as a little bonus, I'm going to be talking about the dream board, but I mentioned those personal wins for them because as a leader, you want to focus on how they can fit their vision within the company's vision. And that is so important for long-term success, because when you talk about retention and getting people, the right people in the right seats, it's going to be a lot easier if those same people just stick around versus having a lot of turnover, a lot of churn, and having to go and recruit and source new people all the time. And so the more that you can be a better leader, the easier this business actually becomes. And so this trait is just so critical to your long-term sustainable success. And when you can get wins for them, just like we talk about getting wins for our students, they're just going to keep on coming back for more, and they're going to be willing to do anything. And another quick story, because it just happened this week. I have a property in Vermont, and the boiler, it's called a puffback. Never heard of this before, but the soot got blocked out of the flue, and it went all over the house. There's soot all over this 5,000 square foot house. Everything in there is damaged and gone. We have to cancel about 30,000 reservations. This happened Wednesday. I had 3 hours of coaching calls though. And I was like, I'm not going to stop. The team, my EA told me what happened. I said, thank you for letting me know. I had one of my employees go up there yesterday, meet with the adjuster, meet with 2 inspectors, or meet with a remediation company. He did everything. And I just told the group when I was coaching, I am so grateful that I have built this business the way we have, that we have team members that are willing to do this type of legwork that is not in their job description, by the way. I'm driving 2.5 hours for a random adjuster meeting, but they do it because they see the vision and they see that I'm going to take care of them. And when I take care of them, they're willing to pay it forward in any way they can. And that's the type of team you want to be able to build in the long 100%. Run.
I knew you were different when I think you had your first like main cleaner that was cleaning a bunch of properties for you. This is probably when you were at like 12 or 13 properties, and it came bonus time. We were talking about bonuses at the end of the year. And instead of sending her a bonus of, a few $100 or, an email saying thank you, you gave her an Xbox or a PS4. Which one was it? Was it an Xbox?
Yeah, probably PS4. Yeah.
I think it was, whatever it was, because you knew that her son or daughter loved that. And so you went the extra mile of talking to her, learning about her, learning what motivates her. Maybe, it's her kid. Maybe she mentioned, hey, we'd love an Xbox, but you went the extra mile, and you continue to do that too, not only on the coaching side, but also like you said, on your management business too. And then people just buy in and believe in you way more, and will go the extra mile for you because you do the same for them.
And you have to take that initiative, right? You can't be expecting someone else to put the logs in the fire. You got to put the logs in the fire. That's an Earl Nightingale quote. But well, let's get into some of the techniques that you can apply now, whether you have 1 or 10 people. A lot of these ideas are going to come from the book Traction and EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. The first being, you got to have KPIs. You hear this a lot with us, is you got to know your numbers in the business. One of the issues that I hear a lot of students have is they're worried about when they're not in the day-to-day, like what's going to happen. And the way you start to lead is through KPI. Mike Sjogren talks a lot about, if you were on an island, you got one piece of paper that told you the effectiveness of your business. What are those numbers that you'd want to see? So I'll be transparent. This is something that we've been doing for 3 or 4 years now. We've expanded on our scorecard, something that we actually offer in the course too. But we'll track things like management commission this year versus last year. Because if we have goals to grow, we want to know what our growth rate is this year versus last year, and see if we're on track. So that's very, very helpful. So this year management commission, last year management commission, what's the growth rate on that? That's top line, that's sales, right? Then you get into guest experience. A lot of people, you're going to be hiring a VA for your first hire. So when you lead them, you're going to want to understand, what are the guest review scores? What's the response time for the VA? And if you have multiple VAs, you can usually do that by agent, depending on the PMS. You want to know how many bookings you're getting every week. We know how many bookings we're going to get on, or we're getting on every platform: Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo, etc. So those are just a few examples of having KPIs in your business that are reported every week. It should be a responsibility of your VA to be inputting that and preparing that before the meeting. And when you start to work through those KPIs, it lets you step out of the day-to-day business and not feel like you need to be in it all the time. The quality control, you do want to go deeper once in a while and help train, especially when you have a new hire. But when you are in flow as a leader and running a day-to-day business and you have your team in place and you've gotten through that onboarding phase with them, then it's about operating through KPI. Okay. And that's just one element. I want to talk about two others, but I'm curious, Mike, like what other KPIs are you tracking in your business that help you kind of see it without being in the day-to-day?
I mean, those are really the main ones, man. It's growth on the management commission. It's also growth on, I look at every single month, every single property, is there growth year over year? And if not, why? So I do that every week. And then also we have a weekly review. So all the reviews that took place last week, we review all of them and then make changes. And that's something I didn't implement until really the last maybe 3 months, because we just get 5-star after 5-star after 5-star after 5-star. But now things are changing, and we're growing. We're having more properties. And so, that just gets, more problems happen. And so just being able to mitigate those. The other thing too, is I always look at the amount of open issues we have. We use a project management tool where people can open up issues, whether it's like a maintenance issue or, whatever issue is happening that's physically at the property, just tracking those and tracking how quickly those get done. And so we have a 24-hour SLA for issues that need to be taken care of. So, and I agree, man. I think, Carolina, she said growing, like her biggest issue is growing with elevated standards and maintaining the same 5-star level. It's tough to be able to be like, all right, I'm going to add more people, but they're not me. They're not going to do it as good as me. But when you track via KPI and you maintain that standard, that's how you grow and that's how you elevate.
And I think what's important, and this is going to be hard for people to hear, is you kind of have to be good with 80% of as good as you would do it, at least to start. And if you give that person that 20% grace, you can close that gap over time for sure. But that expectation that they're going to come in and be you, it's not going to happen. It doesn't mean you're a special snowflake. Anybody can operate this business, but they're going to need training. They're going to need time, and you're going to have to give them grace. And that's part of being a good leader and understanding, the talent pipeline.
Yeah.
I love that you brought up the guest review thing, because I think there's quantitative KPIs and there's qualitative, and the reviews themselves will show you both the pros and the cons for marketing material, the pros, and then the share back with owners, but also just any of the constructive feedback. And all of that constructive feedback should make it onto your issue list. And that's what you're doing with your project management tool. And we do the same thing. So that's the number one technique. It's not maybe the most important, but it's one of the techniques that you're going to need to implement when you scale this thing beyond you. And even before that point, I would still encourage you to have some of these KPIs in place, because you're going to want to report them back to clients and use that as marketing material, etc. All right. The second technique, and the reason we did this in order, was because this is when you're going to review those KPIs, is during the weekly level 10 meeting. If you've read the book Traction, you'll understand that vernacular, but L10, a very high level, not 10,000 foot, but like very high energy, very structured meeting that you're going to have with your team. At our point, we have a leadership call with my director of ops, my manager of growth, and my head of administration. But again, this could be a call with your single VA or one person on your team. You want to get into a cadence where you're reviewing those KPIs on a weekly basis. Now, in terms of an agenda, in structure, you do any sort of wins, like Mike was just talking about, the highlights from both, your clients, the guests, as well as maybe your owners. And then you go into KPIs, rocks, or goals, and then you spend the vast majority of the time on issues. So at our level, again, we actually have department level meetings that talk about guest review scores and marketing and revenue. They dive deeper into the details. And then those leaders come to my L10 call. And during that issue time, they escalate the issues they heard that the team needs help with that are dependent on me for guidance. Otherwise, I step aside. So if there's an issue at property X with the HVAC, I am trusting the team to take care of that issue, and I am not going to get involved. That's another really hard lesson learned as a newer leader, is to stop micromanaging. It's hard to do when you've been trained habitually to just solve for everything. So during this time, it's an open hour and a half forum of going through, how is the business performing? What projects are we working on? What progress are we making on those projects? And then, okay, what are the issues? Let's prioritize those and let's figure out how to solve for them. And so I might not even hear about 80 to 90% of the day-to-day problems, but the bigger strategic ones, that's where I want to have an influence on. Or if the team's really stuck, then I can provide that training. But the L10 meeting is that recurring time where the group comes together and collectively makes sure the business is sound and then is making progress on the business. You're actually working towards whatever goals that you have.
I'm curious, what percentage, because the L10 meeting is really just a proactive meeting. Yes, you're looking at KPIs and things that have happened, but you're not reacting to different things that are going on. As a CEO of CEO of your business, what percentage of time do you feel like you are being proactive versus being reactive in your business?
I'm probably at 80% of the time being proactive versus reactive. There's going to be times where you get sucked in by an owner email or a text message or whatever on Slack. Team needs your help. That's part of it. You got to be a leader. You got to step up to the plate when they ask for your help. But man, like Dan Martell talks about in his book, Buy Back Your Time, you hire to buy back your time so that you can work more on the business. And so 80% of the time I'm working on the business. I'm working on either researching with the mastermind, what are the different tools, techniques, etc., that we need to use, or I'm on sales calls and being proactive about growing the business. So that's roughly the percentage now. It's not going to be like that when you first out, but that's what you want to be shooting for, is just increasing that allocation of how much time you're spending on the business versus in it.
Number one, KPIs. Number two, the L10. Right. What's
number three is the one-on-one. So that's your point or your question. The one-on-one happens with your direct report. It doesn't have to happen with everybody. As a quick bonus and an aside, and I just had it today, we have a monthly all hands. That's going to be your chance for face-to-face interaction with everybody. There's also something else that's called skip levels, which we won't get into, but that's an opportunity for somebody that's got a manager that's not you, and you have an opportunity to talk with them. But the one-on-one is also a weekly meeting with your direct report. And that could be a single VA, or it could be, in my case, my director of operations. And they're the ones that are having one-on-ones and managing their team beneath them. So I have a one-on-one with my head of administration, my manager of growth, and my director of operations every single week. In that one-on-one, there's a couple crucial questions that I want you to ask. And the first one, I almost always started out like this, is how are you feeling? And just listen to my tone. Okay. I ask it just like that. How are you feeling? Try to relax the environment and relax them into the conversation. And if you know something's going on in their life, like, call it out. Like, how is my one of my folks is closing on a house next week. How's the closing on the house going? Get the appraisal back. How's your husband doing? Talking with them about something that is impacting their life, to let them know that it's not just about the business. Okay. be genuinely curious about who they are as a human. The second thing is I like to set agendas for the team. Okay. Or for the call. Pretty much every call now I go on, I like to make sure I set the agenda before I just say, how are you doing? Because that's when things can just go haywire, right? You just never know where that question is going to lead you to. So I like to say, hey, great, you're feeling good. I have a couple things for you, and I genuinely will, to talk to them about. What do you have for me? You want to make it about them. You want to make it like, hey, this is your meeting, this is your stage, but you don't want to make it so loose end that it just goes anywhere and everywhere. So I make it a point, like, I have a couple of things I want to talk to you about, but I want you to, whatever is a stuck that you're stuck with right now, like, how about you get that off your chest and share it? So we'll talk through whatever that is. A lot of times it's just me helping them remove obstacles with a process or a person or whatever. And then I'll get into my own agenda. But I put them first. I put them above me. But I still create those boundaries around the meeting. So it's still structured, and we know, like, hey, these 30 minutes, let's make some progress. And we're not just going to talk about whatever. Anything those are the key elements, the two key questions that I'm asking in the one-on-one every single week. Anything that you would add, Mike?
No, man, I think you hit it spot on. And there's some like little things that I want to make sure people pick up and highlight. How are you feeling? That one question can go anywhere, but it's important to ask at the beginning of every single one-on-one. Because that really, it could go in a lot of different directions. It could be, hey, yeah, I'm feeling great, when you can get into other things fast, but then there could also be some other things that need to get taken care of. And you may be the only person that day that's asking them how they're feeling. You probably are, at least in a very genuine way. You see people at the coffee shop, hey, how you doing? It's, the kind of the same thing. But when you have that trust, that, you can really open up on different things, or maybe they got an idea, it can really move fast, move your business fast. And then again, it's all about that relationship. And I see all too often the L10 and the one-on-ones, people just skip them. Like people will just say, hey, it's, we can skip this week. I don't have anything for you. Have that call, and you don't have to have one-on-ones with your VAs every single week. Maybe it's bi-weekly. But if you have one person that is on your team, meet with them at least weekly. If you have 5 people that are on your team, maybe don't meet with them weekly, all of them, but then have a direct manager for that. And we can talk about org charts and stuff like that. But don't skip out on those meetings, because those are extremely important to develop trust, and also make sure that, you guys are on the same page and you're answering their questions, and they're also helping you move the ball along to hit the KPIs. Because at the end of the day, that's number one, is the standard, is the KPIs. So
if growing your team and buying back your time is something you're interested in, click the link down below and book a call with us. We'll have a chat. We'll go through what our process looks like to grow and scale your business, not only your SOPs, your guest services, your operations department, but also what your system looks like for sales and growth too. So click the link down below. We're happy to have a chat with you, and we'll see you on that call.